Hey guys, Sublord here, back in with another action figure review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Star Wars Black Series Wal-Mart exclusive Clone Wars Micro Series General Grievous. Now, this of course brought to us by the fine folks over at Hasbro, and unfortunately, when it comes to one of, if not my favorite, Star Wars character, good old General Grievous here, Hasbro had to Hasbro, and Hasbro the ever-living crap out of this figure because, yeah, this body mold is, I think, half good and half what were they thinking? And that's unfortunate because General Grievous has the potential to be one of the greatest action figures of all time, but just, if it was made by literally anyone else, it'd probably be pretty good, but, you know, Hasbro is going to save money and cut corners and make it not really effective. So, you know, that said, the plus side about this version, the version 2, the second version, whatever, second release, I should say, of this mold, is that it was only $25 as opposed to the original that was $35. Despite the fact that, other than coming with a gun and, you know, a cape with a second layer to it, I mean, come on. That's the only difference. That and the paint, but this one has a lot of paint too. It's just different colors, and I had to bust out the black drop. I'm sure somebody's going to get offended by that, but screw you, it's clever for this review because this is a very bright figure. He's very white and light gray and whatnot, because that's how he looked in the Micro Series. That said, he didn't look like this specifically in the Micro Series. He had a lot of different proportions, like the legs, for example. He had straight up Megatron from Transformers Prime looking legs. He had bulkier shoulder pauldrons. You know, a lot more stylistic choices and liberties taken as far as the character design was concerned, because it was a series done by, I believe his name is Tarkovsky? I forget his name, but the same guy who did Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Hotel Transylvania, Primal, and Unicorn Warriors Eternal. All of which, except for Hotel Transylvania, I believe, are on Max. So if you want to watch them there, you can. I think the Micro Series might be on Disney Plus because they own Star Wars. That makes sense. But, you know, very stylistic character designs from that fine fellow. He also did Symbionic Titan, which I don't know where to stream that. So, before I get too far ahead of myself, why don't we cut right to the chase and get into the meat and taters of this review and take a look-see at all General Grievous has to offer in terms of accessories. Starting off with his 4 lightsabers. He does come with 4 of them. And I dropped one here. Where did it go? There it is. You do get 4 of these. So that's good. He can hold them all well enough, you know. It's not perfect, but most Star Wars Black Series can't hold their lightsabers the best anywho. But you can see the blades do pop out. That one popped out really easy, but it doesn't fall out. And then he also comes with this cape. Because in the Micro Series he did have a cape. Very Magna Guard looking cape. It's like stark white. And has a big old seam line on it right here in the front. I don't know why they gotta do that. You know, the Master of the Universe capes don't have that. I don't know why this guy's does. But either way, this kind of draped over him like a Magna Guard cape. But I'm not sure if you can necessarily do that with this cape, but you might be able to. I guess I could throw that on him before we cut to size comparisons, but there you go. There's his cape. It should be right on the inside, but, you know, it's at least thinner than the last one's cape. The last one's cape was so thick, you can't even get it to sit right. So, yeah. Taking a closer look at the man of the hour here, because I hope this review doesn't drag on too long. I tend to make my Star Wars videos short and sweet, but there's a lot to talk about with this guy, because he is my favorite character, one of my favorite characters anyways, and I've never reviewed the old figure, but Starting off, you can see, again, very bright colors on this guy. And lots of paint detail. They got a lot of the details right. Enough so that it's throwing off my white balance, so hopefully I'll be able to fix that in editing. But lots and lots of detail. Lots and lots of detail. Lots of circuitry and whatnot. I bet you can even pull these away and see some of his innards there, but that's gross, so we won't do that. But as far as articulation on this guy goes, there's a lot. I think there might be a little too much, but there's a lot. He's got a neck hinge. This is a hinge joint in the neck here. And then he does have a ball peg in the head. So it can rotate. It can look up and down a little bit. It can tilt slightly, but not a ton. Now, I will tell you, I like to lean the neck forward and tilt the head back. That's kind of how he is in most of the cartoons. He's got this hunch look to him. But, you know, if you do that, that's fine too. As far as the arms go, they do have that butterfly joint. You're not going to get a ton out of it, but it does work. It is there. He does have swivel in the shoulder. You can hear that little pop as it pops into place. He does have a hinge in the shoulder. Allows you to move it up pretty far. And then as far as the arms go, they do bend in the middle here when they're together. But really, you're supposed to split these apart. And that's when you get even more articulation. These are both individually articulated on the same joint as the shoulder. So you can bring the small arm forward and back on both sides, both the front and the back. He does have a bicep swivel here. They can, of course, move in and out. That's the same joint we saw for the combined form. They bend more than 90. I mean, you're essentially supposed to do this. And then he does have rotation in the forearm, but nothing in the wrist. I wish he had something in the wrist. I would have been okay if the wrist didn't even connect, and we just had something better in the arm here, the forearm, as far as connecting goes. But connecting it back together, you snap it in there, and then you pretty much snap the hand together. And you just kind of give it a little squeeze. That's what she said. And there you go. There's your combined arm. Now, I personally would have rather have gotten swappable arms. Like a pair of arms that were, you know, just the two arms, and then a pair of the, you know, splayed out arms, the forearms. Because that would have worked a crap load better. As far as functionality goes, we could have got the wrist swivel, because you can't do the thing he does with the articulation he's got. You can kind of use the forearm swivel, but it just doesn't. That's not how he does it. He does it with his wrist, not his forearm. So, while you can kind of do it, you really can't. As far as the torso goes, he does have a ball joint in there, but it is very limited unless you want to heat up the armor plates and kind of move those around a bit. That's about the only way you're going to get anything out of that, but it's mostly just a single ball peg. That's kind of reasonable. It's kind of tricky to get in there and get anything to really work. His hips are on, I guess, just little ball pegs. They are kind of loose, but he is kind of skinny, so I guess it's good that it doesn't break. But his legs can kick in and out. They do rotate forward and back. You got a bit of a built-in thigh swivel up there. That's pretty generous, more so than the Magna Guard. He does have double knee, which is okay, and on the first one is a little loose. On this guy it's a little better. It's not as loose, but it's still not perfect. It's got some weak points. And then this piece here hinges up and down. Why? It's so thin, it's so small. I don't recall this being a moving piece in the movies or the cartoon for that matter. I just remember this being static and him doing most of whatever with his feet, which can also hinge forward and back, as well as kind of rock side to side, but not really. It's just really a swivel because of how steep it is. Kind of has to be, though. There's nothing in the front here. I guess they could have took some liberties, but, you know. It just, this moving makes him that much more unstable. And it's a pain right in the butt. So, while I like this figure quite a bit, I really do. I think he's awesome in some ways. He just falls flat on his butt kiss in others, like figuratively and quite literally. So I like this Grievous figure. I think aesthetically it looks really, really good. But, you know, functionality and the build quality leave a little bit to be desired. And that's disappointing. Because I want this figure to be great. I laid him down because I'm trying to unravel his cape here as I ramble on a bit. Ramble on. A dooba 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 dooba. What was I saying? But I think this character has the potential to have a great figure. One of the greatest figures ever. And it just falls short because I know the company working on it is cutting corners. I know they is. They always do. They do it with the Marvel line, although this year they seem to be stepping it up quite a bit. But yeah, I just wish we could get a little bit more out of Grievous here, but you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. At least I got the cape to sit on him, right? Pretty sure it sits like that, so that's good. And if you put the lightsabers in his hands, it helps kind of hold the arms together. But there he is with his cape, looking all regal and whatnot. He looks freaking cool, man. I like this version. I do wish it was more accurate to the art style, but, you know, they're not going to shell out that much money for a new mold. I mean, let's be real here. Black Series tends to lean more towards the realistic aesthetic, and I can respect that. This is more of an homage to that Clone Wars Micro series, but I can't help but want what I want, and I want big, clunky leg, gonna be super easy to stand, you know, super articulated version of that Grievous. I think they made a 3-inch figure of that, right? Am I wrong? I think they made a 3-inch version of that Grievous, or I guess this Grievous, with the proportions that I'm thinking of from that series. So, with that being said, before this video drags out any longer than it already has, it is time now that we move right along and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here is, I mean, it's alright, General Grievous, alongside the only other figure I picked up from this Wal-Mart exclusive Clone Wars Micro Series, quote-unquote, wave. Old Mac Sam Jackson himself, Mace Windu, though, was he voiced by Sam Jackson in the series? I'm not sure. That said, I got a review of him going up later today, so long as these Star Wars Black Series videos go up, according to plan, that is. And I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, I think they did a better job on him than General Grievous. Unfortunately, I wish they did a better job on both of them, but, you know, I guess it's better to have one that's really good and one that's good enough as opposed to two that suck, right? That said, we also have the Magna Guard, who I looked at recently. Not sure if those guys were in the Micro series or not. I know they were in the Clone Wars series, the CGI one, but I don't know if they were in the, you know, kind of 2D, hand-drawn, whatever you want to call it, short-lived series there. But he looks good next to Grievous. You know, their white capes match, so they shop at the same tailor, I guess. But there you go. There is the Magna Guard. And Grievous's first arch nemesis, Mace Windu. Because Mace Windu is responsible for effing Grievous up, for those of you who don't know your Star Wars lore. He literally used the Force to rip Grievous's guts out and crush them, and that's why he has a cough in Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars CGI series. That said, here are two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibilith, right there. And the infamous 11th Spawn, who, yeah, still pretty much towers over everyone. Grievous is not as tall as Spawn. I thought he might have been, because he's a big figure, but I guess he's not big enough for an old Al Simmons here. So with that being said, it is time now that we wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and despite the many shortcomings with the General Grievous mold from the Star Wars Black Series, on top of the fact that for the Micro Series version of Grievous, this mold isn't accurate in the slightest. I mean, seriously, should have at least had different legs, because he had very bulky, like, we're talking Transformers Prime, Megatron looking legs in the Micro Series. But inaccuracies to the source material aside, this video is mostly to express my thoughts on the General Grievous body mold, and it's alright. It's far from perfect. I think the second time around with this release was much better than the first release. Some things on the first release that were loose aren't quite as loose here. Some things on the first release that were tight are not as tight here. It's a mixed bag. I think we need a redo of this character with an all-new body buck, and unfortunately, I don't really see the Star Wars Black Series team doing that, because the only other time they've ever done that was with Boba Fett. They released the original Boba Fett, and then many years later they did a version 2 Boba Fett that was a deluxe release with a bunch of accessories, and that is the superior Boba Fett body mold that they don't use when they make more Boba Fett figures. They use the same old, you know, first edition Boba Fett body mold. So I'm not quite sure what's going over there in the Star Wars Black Series division at Hasbro, but I'm hoping that someday we get a second stab at General Grievous. I don't really mind the size. I think he's big enough, but I think a bigger figure would help the stability, and maybe some things could be tweaked to move a little bit better, and some things could be tweaked to just be, you know, kind of fixed in place. I don't think the feet need to be as articulated as they are. That little thin kind of post bar thing between the leg and the foot, it should be fixed, because the fact that it moves makes him very unstable at times, and he's very tricky to balance. That said, I think the cape could also be done a lot better, and even the arms. I would prefer swappable arms. Solid arms and, you know, the 4 individual arms. That way we could get the wrist articulation. I'm just throwing things at the wall here because Grievous is my favorite Star Wars character, along with, I guess I'd have to say, Darth Vader and or Darth Maul. And he just seems to get the shaft as far as figures go, because he is a very complex character design. He's got a lot going on, but I think someday someone is going to put out the definitive General Grievous figure, and I look forward to that day. I just hope it's not too expensive. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.